So welcome to Setting Up a Virtual Classroom for Best Access. My name is Vanessa Herndon. I'm the Low Vision Clinic Coordinator at California School for the Blind. And I'm presenting with my co-host.
Hi, this is Scott Jaffray. I'm one of the AT specialists at CSB. Welcome.
So we'll be going over a few things in terms of physically how the environment's set up and things to consider for visually what's happening on the screen. And we're going to rely a lot on discussion as well to understand what's been working for you guys in the field. And hopefully your questions that you pose to the group can start some of that great discussion. So we can go ahead and get started with the first poll. Scott, do you want to go to slide 2? All right, poll 1, I am launching. So it says, how are you getting your students to access Zoom independently? Are you sending them the link? Are they clicking on links that are provided in a document or email? Are they typing in the meeting and password numbers on their own? Some of our kids have memorized them and typed them in every time. Are they joining through the Zoom app through preset meetings? Did somebody help them join, or have you figured out a way we did not think of? All right, we've got 9 of 27, 10 of 27 people. We should have took bets before this. Let me see them slowly race to the finish line. All right, 19 of 27. I'll give the last 8 people some time. Are the last 8 people us, actually? AT team, I think that's it. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to end the poll. All right, so the winner is that people are sending links. So that might be through text message every time or through emails. Then right after that is somebody helps them join. And in third place, we have they're clicking links in a document or an email. Fourth place, they're joining through the Zoom app, and tied are typing in the meeting and password numbers and other. I'm curious to know what other is. If you selected other, can you tell me what that is?
So it depends on my students. I have a couple that what we've done is we've taken the link, like the Zoom link, and we've just created a shortcut on the desktop. And then
Awesome.
all they have to do is click on the desktop and it takes them right into their meeting, and they don't have to like put a password in.
Great. Anybody else get creative with it for other?
Somebody in chat shared that they're doing a Zoom link directly from either Canvas or Google Classroom.
Classroom, calendar, Canvas.
Oh, calendar. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to go over some of the ways that we thought might be helpful for students to join independently to a Zoom meeting. So we're going to go to the next slide. Okay, so texts and emails, sometimes when I was working with students, they needed me to text the link to them every single time before we joined a Zoom meeting. Though that is a lot of maintenance, they were able to find it independently and click on that link. Email was a little bit more difficult for some students depending on whether or not they knew how to navigate their email, but that was another way to find it. And when I say text and email, I mean that those things were happening in the moment right before the classroom or the class started, which obviously if you have a huge caseload is a really difficult way to keep track of all of your students and ensure that they're all joining their Zoom meetings. So we have a few other ideas. One is a collaborative document, and the new update for iOS.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'll talk while you find the slide. But as in the new update for iOS, you might see that you have the option to actually create a shared note between yourself and another user. So you would create a note and then you would share via Apple ID to the second iPad. And the student, the idea is they would just navigate their Notes app, and in that note, they could find Class A, Zoom link, Class B, Zoom link. Another idea is if they are familiar with Google Suite, you could put all of those links in a shared Google document that they access from their Drive, and it has listed all of their classes by day or by subject. Another idea is in Google Classroom, if you're using Google Meet, there's an integrated way for the teacher to input the Google Meeting link into the description of the class. And that bar just is the heading on the top of the page. So they would press H to get to the heading and then down arrow to find the link and press enter to open it from a computer. Or if they were using a tablet or a phone, they could swipe until they hear the link and double tap. I will leave it to Scott to discuss Siri because that's a really cool way.
Okay, so Siri has 3 connections to Zoom. Do you think I should show this, Vanessa? I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get back, but I'll click on it. So inside of the settings inside Zoom on iOS, there's something called Siri shortcuts. This is a document that you guys will get access to and talks about how to set it up. But inside of that, that button there that says Siri shortcuts is 3 ways to join a meeting. You can join the next meeting and it looks at your calendar and just goes to the next meeting and opens it. You can get a list of today's meetings and then you can start your personal meeting room. So depending on which one is appropriate, the student would just use either Hey Siri or hold down the button to, as my Siri turns on in the background, or use Siri by pushing down the button, the trigger button, and say, join the next meeting. You can actually edit, because sometimes that phrase isn't the right phrase. So inside the edit shortcut, you can change what you want it to say. If the student is always saying, go to my math class or open my math class or whatever it is, you can actually type that in here and that'll be the trigger for starting the meeting. And literally, this is the document that shows you how to do it. And it's pretty simple. And so literally, go to my next meeting. As long as it's in your calendar, it's going to open up that next meeting. So just like clicking on a link. I don't know. Is everybody seeing this?
It says exit to full screen.
Oh, I'm gonna have to share again. Yeah, it didn't quite go as. There you go. Oh, there we go. I'm working on another workaround that you would just be able to put a bookmark on the desktop or the home page of the device and use Siri as well to do it that way for an even more simple way to do it.
And just to note, I think this is really similar to what somebody said, they were saving bookmarks to the desktop. You can also save web pages, like the Zoom link is a web page, quote unquote. That's what the second bullet point would be, is to save that web page as an application to the home screen of the iPad or iPhone or Android phone,
Well, it
tablets,
wouldn't work on, it
etc.
may, I don't think it'd work on Android. So when you save a bookmark in iOS, you have a choice of saving to home screen, and then it shows up as an application. And as long as you use the application, you know, when you say open whatever, as long as what you say after open is the name of that bookmark, it'll open it up. So it's pretty simple. I'm working on a walkthrough of how to set it up at the present time.
We also have coming up some more details on accessibility with Zoom. So we have, we'll go over how to use JAWS and VoiceOver to access Zoom with Gmail, Calendar, or from your browser. I think that is, does anybody have the date? I think it's in October, first Wednesday in October.
One of our last slides lists the ones that have been
We'll
scheduled.
have the date. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
And so sprinkled throughout this, and what we'll send out to everybody, as long as we have your email, is a list of all these documents. So this last link at the bottom, how to join a Zoom meeting, it's literally a simple how to open a Zoom meeting on 3 different devices, Windows, Mac, and iOS. So it may be too simple for some students or teachers, but you know, it'll walk you through step by step.
So we want to invite any discussion or feedback for the first part of this presentation regarding joining Zoom meetings.
Does anybody have any great ideas out there? What are you doing? Have you figured something out that we haven't?
Or is there a resource that you wish was out there, some question that you're dying to have answered for you? Okay, well, write them down because I know they're coming. Keep them. We'll have time to discuss later as well.
Okay, we're moving on.
So I just have a few rule of thumbs in terms of accessibility that are outside of the physical environment of how the student is accessing and all the cameras, et cetera, which we'll talk about later. But still getting the material in advance is probably something that's obvious, but doesn't happen. Like a lot of the time, teachers will share things in the chat and things like that. And so it's really important that students, whether they are using a screen reader or they're using their vision to access, get the material in advance in an electronic format for a variety of reasons. And one of them being if they need to access it either with a screen reader or by increasing the font size or maximizing the document to fit their visual needs. They need to be able to do that in advance. They might also need to be able to preview the material or to review the material after in order to make sure that they're not missing something that's been presented in the class. You may already know this, but anything that's shared via screen share is not accessible to a screen reader, and it's not accessible to somebody who has low vision who wants to edit that in order to fit what they need. Although they can be using magnification software to access what's on that screen, they're going to get better access if they have the ability to manipulate the document. Also, a consideration for low vision users is that perhaps depending on the magnification they're using, they can only zoom in on what's presented. They may not be seeing their classmates or their teacher speaking. They may only be seeing part of what should be presented at a time. They can't increase the font size, and they can't edit and take notes on the document. It also does not give the blind or low vision student the opportunity to preview or review. Another rule of thumb is just discussing like what does the student's Zoom look like? Grid view is nice because it's important for them to see all their friends, right? It's nice, but is that really great in terms of their access to content? Should they be limiting it to speaker view so that they only see who's presenting the content in their window at one time? Should they pin a video so that they only see the teacher? Because if the teacher starts talking and then another student talks, the student's gonna get into that speaker view, and that may be distracting for some students. So pinning the teacher video may be an important thing to consider. Also, what's in your video background or what's in the teacher's video background. Having a cluttered background or a distracting background can be difficult for a lot of students to focus on. Next. And another one. This one that may be the most pertinent to distance learning, and it's visual fatigue. So your student may have been using something all year long, and now that they're in distance learning, they're having visual fatigue when they never have had that before. And that may be because when they're in school, there are a lot of natural breaks. Like maybe they get up to use the bathroom, or maybe they look away from their computer screen and they're listening to their teacher, or they're changing classes, or they're engaging in discussion with their classmates. But all of these things now they have to do through the Zoom screen in order to talk to their teacher, or to listen to their teacher, or to change classes. They have to navigate using the screen. So the amount of time spent on a screen has increased by a lot. Can we go? Thank you. So some things to consider are the lighting, both at home and on the device. What's the ambiance in the room like? Are they facing a window? Is there a lot of glare on their screen? Do they have appropriate task lighting in the room? But then also on the device, you have to consider the dimness and the brightness. And of course, having dimmer light is going to be easier on the eyes. But as we know, for a lot of our students, they need light to be able to see. So this slide is actually a good example of reverse contrast. And I would consider reverse contrast for any student who's having visual fatigue, because you can maintain a high brightness without getting a lot of the brightness from the background. Like if this background was white and the text was black, that's a lot of light coming at me. However, with a black background and a white text, I'm able to visually see pretty easily, maintain high brightness, but not have a lot of light coming into my eyes. Another thing is electronic copies of the work give the student audio access. And maybe students who have not had audio access before can be encouraged to use different Chrome extensions like Read and Write, or simple things that give them audio feedback instead of just having to visually access constantly. Eye breaks, so a lot of optometrists suggest that every 20 minutes for everybody, not just people with visual impairments, but every 20 minutes, you stop what you're doing and you refocus on something at a distance for about 10 seconds. And then you look back at what you're focusing at near, and that gives your eyes some time to adjust, and it can help to reduce visual fatigue. Another thing is breaking up visually demanding tasks into chunks. And I don't know if you guys come across this, but I come across this often, where like I'll review a vision report and see that the recommended font size for a student is a lot bigger than what they're actually using. And that's because I think kids often want to do what they can to fit in. And so they'll do what is at their threshold of comfort. And so they can be reading those, and they do read those smaller font sizes, but in terms of visual fatigue, it's going to fatigue them a lot quicker than reading with a larger font size. So really encouraging students to use their larger font size. I mean, they're at home, nobody's seeing them in the classroom using a larger font size. Maybe just send them things that are in the font size that was recommended so that they have to change it if they prefer. But really encourage students to use bigger font sizes if they will be on the computer and reading for an extended amount of time and they're experiencing visual fatigue.
And I would also add that if there's a screen reader on their device, using the screen reader when appropriate to give their eyes a break is a good habit.
So there was a great article on visual fatigue by the Wisconsin, I misspelled Wisconsin, this Wisconsin Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired. I linked to it here, but they also have a lot of resources for visual accommodations and recommendations across different platforms to reduce visual fatigue. We will share these links with you when we post this to YouTube, but you can also, it's also reposted on Perkins. So if you look up visual fatigue, remote learning in Perkins, you'll find it. Okay. This went so well the first time we decided to break into discussion again. Did you guys think of more questions? Not all at once. Does anybody have students who are experiencing more visual fatigue? I'm wondering if that is something that's common you're coming across.
No, just me as the teacher.
Yeah, I mean, me too. And I wonder at the end of the day, I'm like, why am I so grumpy? Why do I have a headache? Like, maybe it's partially visual fatigue for all of us. In the chat, I see a lot of people saying, yes, this is something.
Well, I do have a question. Sorry, can I just ask or make a comment? This is Cindy Green from CSB. So all my students are blind. A few of them have light perception, and I'm curious, and of course, I suppose it depends on how much light perception, but I'm curious if even minimal light perception is being affected by just looking at the screen all day. I assume the answer is yes, but you know, I never really thought about it until now because they're all blind and, you know, don't use their vision to access anything.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say if they have anything in their report that shows that they're sensitive to light or sensitive to glare, that's definitely a consideration for a blind student, a totally blind student, or a student without functional vision, I should say. There's you can put on, and this is even good for our kids who have functional vision, if you're trying to encourage the use of screen reader or more auditory feedback, is you can put on a, what is it called? It's called, like, it turns your screen black. So you don't access visually, screen curtain. You can turn that on an iPad or on a laptop so that students are not accessing visually. So that might be a fun challenge to do one-on-one with students who are learning screen readers, and maybe in your time with students, if they are feeling visually fatigued, it would be a good opportunity to just turn off the screen and practice a screen reader or something like that.
Well,
Stephanie
looking
says,
at the time,
I should buy stock in ibuprofen. Yes.
Looking at the time, we probably should move on.
Okay. Oh, too much screen time hard on students with seizures. Yeah, that is definitely a consideration. Absolutely. The screen thing is called screen curtain. So if you look up how to turn on screen curtain on, and then you put in your device like iPad, laptop, Mac, you should be able to find how to do that. The trick is you need to find how to turn it off while you're still searching for YouTube.
On iPad, it's a 3-finger triple tap to turn it on and off.
Working with Sterling to get Reveal 16 to add to iPad. What do you mean to add to iPad? Do you know something exciting about the Reveal 16 and the iPad? Do you mean that the Reveal 16 is its own standalone video magnifier, and the students using an iPad, so they use the 16 for something and the iPad for something, or they, gotcha. Great, yeah. Giving students that, I don't know if everybody has the ability to send their students video magnifiers. That's something that I didn't actually think about, but hopefully students are able to have access to video magnifiers at home. Layla says, can you explain what that is? A Reveal 16 is a tablet-based video magnifier. It also comes as, so it can be a smart video magnifier, it can be a regular video magnifier. It's technically portable. It probably weighs about 15 pounds, but you can fold it up. So it comes with basic functions, or you can get another one that's kind of like a tablet based. It's from Humanware, so it's going to look a lot like the Prodigy or the Mac Connect, but it's in a different sort of casing. I need keyboard shortcuts for shortcuts. For
Yeah,
Zoom meetings
I'm
on
trying to
Chrome.
type here. So I'll be showing in a moment, I'll be showing, I did everything but Chrome. I did, sorry, Windows, Mac, and iOS. I have some documents to share with everybody, but not for Chromebook, but I can do that. I can work on that. I can put it on my list.
Okay, did I miss any questions? Definitive proof that blue light lenses actually can help. I have not seen definitive proof, and when I talk to my optometrists, it seems that they're waiting for proof as well. But
if it makes it comfortable for you and it doesn't make it harder to see, most people would probably say go ahead and use them. I'm not sure about proof though.
Jennifer says, I have kids who are complaining about massive headaches, parents pulling their students out of district and putting kids in homeschool. So yeah, visual fatigue can, I mean, I'm sure that there are a lot of factors that contribute to that decision. However, if a student is not able to access or is having headaches, that's an additional deterrent to an already challenging situation. So definitely consider how you can cut down on visual fatigue. Okay, poll.
It's a good reason to teach the use of the screen reader. You know, some things you want to see, but you don't have to read long documents.
All right, the poll is, how do your students access the Zoom meeting? What is your Zoom setup? Do they use one device to join the Zoom and another to do the classwork? Do they use just one device, or do they use one device for everything, but they use a phone to receive push-in from a TVI, para, or one-to-one? Or other?
I'm rooting for other. It looks like there's a wide variety.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna
We got
give it
another.
a couple more seconds. I think that we've got about everyone. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll and share the results. Okay, so in first place, we have they use one device to join Zoom and another to do classwork at 61%, and following really shortly behind is they use just one device. And then there are about, for 39%, there are some considerations for how to have additional support from a paraprofessional, push-in from a TBI, or from a one-to-one, and one mysterious other, which maybe you could share. You feel so inclined.
Yes. Sorry, guys. It just depends. I have 2 or 3 devices sometimes. Sometimes we use the Mac Connect as the video to connect to Zoom, or we'll use the computer to connect to Zoom, and then the Mac Connect when they're working on it. and then they're almost using 3 devices sometimes, because then they use and then the IA is kind of helping them along, or I'm helping them along too. It just depends on the class that they're using. With math, we use like the Math Connect a little bit more with one of my students because he's a dual user, and he uses print for math, and so we do like Desmos and Delta Math that way, and then type up our answers and kind of send them off. But then we still use Zoom on like the computer so that we're able to kind of help provide assistance that way as well.
Got it. So the Zoom connection is really for you to be able to observe the student as they're working.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. So we're going to go over a couple different Zoom setups and the different considerations and benefits of each setup. Go ahead to the next slide. And I think this is you, Scott.
Okay, so like we just talked about, there's several different ways to do it. A student can log in with a separate device. It could be a phone or an iPad. And most often it seems like people are using that for like an overview. And as this says, and you've probably heard, if you have 2 devices connected to the same meeting, you get a lot of audio feedback because a microphone is picking up what the other one is, and it starts feeding back and going back and forth and back and forth. So if you are going to log in with another device, make sure that you turn off the audio on one of them. And you might want to think about, which one do you want that to be before you get started on it. So you could use a phone with a phone stand somewhere, right? So that they can see. We have a student who they're trying to work with on a signature guide. And so having a camera on it makes it really nice where they can see what the person's doing, or they're practicing their Braille, or they're typing, right? So, you have to sort of figure out what are you trying to get out of it, and how can that device provide that? Because if you're only using the camera like I am on the laptop, you have a limited view. You only have the area where that's pointing, and then you're doing a lot of, okay, move it to the left a little, no, go back, and you're trying to get the thing into the view. So you can have some issues there. But it's good if you want to see what they're doing, right? If they're working on something that you can't see with that one camera. So like the idea of putting away the dishes, any of those things, it's a good chance that using that external camera is going to help. And remember that you're not going to be able to share at the same time. Like I'll be showing a camera here in a few moments, and otherwise you have to keep switching back. You can see out of one or you can see out of the other. You're not going to be able to see both at the same time unless you're really tricky and you can figure it out. There is an issue with screen readers. So has anybody tried to hear what their student is doing? And if they don't share the screen and share audio, you're not going to be able to hear. You may not be able to hear very well either unless they crank it all the way up. So figuring out what a student's doing, as you probably have seen, can be very difficult. And that separate device really helps. So some little tips there. So you can you can connect a separate camera, and what I'm using is the IPVO, and here's a a document. Maybe Adrian can drop that into the group chat. He's been doing a wonderful job doing that. Thank you, Adrian. I'm going to stop sharing this so that I can share. I can never figure out which one I'm supposed to share. I think we're going to do this one. And then I'm going to change my try that again.
So while Scott is finding the how-to sheet, there's a quick keyboard command if you have your iPivo plugged into a computer to switch the camera view from your computer to the iPivo. So the student could join from one device and connect the document camera, and then just toggle between sharing their face and sharing face from the laptop camera to sharing whatever is viewable by the iPivo camera with a simple keyboard command.
And it's really as simple as plugging it in. I tried the Elmo and it's not as simple. The iPivo was very simple. Literally just plug it in and then it shows up in your video menu to choose from. So here, if you can see my, my image, it's looking down from above at the keyboard. So let's say you're doing typing, you can actually see what they're doing on the screen, which is nice. This could also be turned, oh, except for now I'm upside down, for an overall view. If you were, let's aiming it at the sink so that you could see what the kids are doing when they're washing the dishes, right? Or whatever it is the task that they're doing. And literally all I'm doing is, now that I have the second camera plugged in, the little up facing arrow to the right of the video button in your Zoom meeting, I'm just clicking on it and switching between the cameras.
One thing to consider as a benefit for this that I don't think we had on our slide, so I wanted to say it while it was fresh on my mind, Scott, was that if you had the iPivo pointed at the student's hands during typing, or even if they were reading in Braille on a refreshable Braille display and you wanted to see how they were reading, but also see the screen and the thing that they were reading or the thing that they were typing, then they could also share their screen with you, or you could access it by, if you're using a shared document, you could also be in the shared document and access what they're looking at, typing, or reading at the same time as observing their finger placement. The iPivo camera is $300, and it typically, so a lot of districts might have one lying around from when they were being used for a distance. If you have any document camera that was being used as a distance camera, I would try and figure out if you can use it just like Scott's using the iPivo. Repurpose it, because we're not needing distance viewing in the distance learning format. But the iPivo is $300. It's an okay document camera. It for distance, it has the benefit of being anywhere in the classroom, and the student can connect to it via Wi-Fi. And it has the benefit of being cheap, but in terms of providing best image quality, etc., it depends on the student. It's not the most wonderful camera. It works for some.
Very true. You know, it's better than a webcam. And you could use a webcam. If you have a little clip-on webcam, you could actually use that. But again, like Vanessa said, quality is going to be an issue.
Would a Mac Connect or a Prodigy camera do the same thing?
Yeah, you could connect. Well, I don't, to be able to toggle between the, yeah, I think so, Scott.
As
right?
long as Zoom recognizes, what you would do is you would start your Zoom meeting. You can just be by yourself, right? And plug it in and then go to your little video menu where you would turn off video or turn it back on. Just to the right of that, there's that little arrow that points up. It's like a little tilde or something. And when you click on it, your available cameras will be in there. So literally by plugging it in and checking, you can find out.
The important thing to note is that it needs to be able to be plugged in. If it's a Wi-Fi camera, which typically a lot of Mac Connect cameras are Wi-Fi cameras, you cannot connect via Wi-Fi to a Zoom meeting and connect via Wi-Fi to a Mac Connect camera. So it does
Correct.
have to plug in via USB.
Right. So the IPEVO has a wireless feature, and I can connect to it to my computer, but I can't, it doesn't show up in my Zoom menu. Okay, move on.
Mhm.
So obviously the other thing is using the same device for both. Now the questions are they able to navigate? This is the way I do it. So I have, you know, well, on a Mac, you can swipe between two different applications. So it's really simple. But you can also, on the Windows, you can use the Alt tab, right? So just like you navigate between applications on your device, if the student can do that, you know, normally it would be doing some research, copying something, you know, navigating to the document, pasting it in, going back and forth, right? So as long as they could do that, they can use the same device for both the meeting and their classwork, but it's going to require some more finesse and abilities on the students' abilities. So, and then another consideration, is it a group setting or is it one-to-one? If anybody's heard a larger group with visually impaired students, and some people have their jaws going or voiceover, that sound cutting in and going over top of other people can be disconcerting and even keep people from understanding what's being said in the meeting. So you really want to be able to control that microphone. We'll be sharing some documents to with the keystrokes to change the camera from one to the other, or to turn off and on everybody's microphone. So if you go through some of those documents, there's a lot of, you may not be able to use all of them, but I guarantee there'll be 2 or 3 that you'll start using all the time. And then, do you need to hear what's going on with the student? A lot of times I'm doing tech support with the student and I need to hear what is going on. I need to hear what JAWS is saying, or I need to have that external camera. I need to have the phone giving that other view, because it can get, as you probably know, it can be very interesting trying to figure out what the student is seeing when you can't see what they're seeing. So that you're saying things like, well, what did it just say to you? So if you can't hear it, just like it could be a problem if you can hear it and it gets in the way, there are the other times when you need to hear what the student is doing. And then we have remote control. And as you know, Zoom has remote control built in to their software on some devices. So I can remote control from my Mac and control a PC, but I can't do that for an iOS device. So you have to sort of look at where does that connection work? Remember, when you're remote controlling through Zoom, you can't get down to a system level of what's going on. So if you have to put in a password or see what's going on when that screen pops up to put in a password, in Zoom, you're not going to see it. You're just going to see a black screen. So then you'll have to try a different team viewer or something like that would allow you to do that.
Scott, apparently, as the person who handles the Zoom account for CSB, I learned that if you have breakout rooms enabled for all users, then it disables the remote control. So it's something to note. I'm not sure why that is. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but. I couldn't explain why it doesn't work at the same time.
I think from my experience, remote control is more useful one-on-one. You know,
Uh-huh.
you're trying to fix something, you're trying to figure out what's going on with their computer, where JAWS isn't talking or whatever it is. You want to see what they're doing and then maybe actually fix it, especially for a student that doesn't have the abilities to, you know, they haven't built those abilities to really navigate the way it would be nice to fix some of the technical issues that come out in this online model, right?
Adrian just gave us a 10-minute warning, so I'm gonna try and get through slides in time for us to have a little bit of
Sure.
discussion. So Scott went over some of the reasons why you might do this. There's the simplicity of being on one device. You do want to make sure that the student can toggle between their Zoom and the work that they're doing. So there's also some, if they're using one device, there are some considerations for tech skill. Are they able to share their screen with audio? Does this do everything that you need it to? You can offer remote control to offer assistance and see what the student is working on in real time, copy and paste the chat. And if a student has difficulty with accommodating between objects and that causes visual fatigue, to be looking at one screen and looking at the other and having their eyes adjust, then having one screen might help to cut down on visual fatigue. Okay, so option 3 is when you have remote assistance, how do you get into the classroom? And this we covered a little bit in our option 2 when we discussed remote learning. Remote control. But remote control is when you're able to first see the student's screen and control what is on their screen. So if you're doing a technology lesson or they're having a technology issue and you need to troubleshoot that with them or provide a direct learning experience with a little bit of, you're like, I'm not sure how this is going to go, but like if they're getting stuck in something, I want to be able to get them unstuck in a moment. Obviously, without doing everything for them, getting stuck can be some good learning experience, but you can consider a third-party remote control while they are on Zoom. So maybe they're on Zoom and you use something like Team Viewer to access what they're doing as they're in their meeting. Next slide. I'm gonna go past discussion so we can have it at the end. And
Should we do our poll?
It's okay, let's skip the poll.
Okay.
So supporting students and paraprofessionals together in the classroom. The poll was actually about this, how you guys are supporting paraprofessionals and one-on-ones and things like that in the classroom. So I wanted to talk about that and provide time for discussion and ideas. But as mentioned in the last slide, perhaps they could use a third-party remote control so that they can access the student, chat with the student. They cannot video chat the student on the same device at the same time that the student's in Zoom, even if it's through a third-party app. But something like Team Viewer gives them access to what is on the student's screen and also gives them access to chat with the student. Another idea is that they could have a Zoom breakout room. So whenever they run into an issue or need extra support, the teacher could put the student in the breakout room. However, that does have some, you really need to consider if that's appropriate to be taking them out of the group setting. So use that wisely. I think that sometimes it can be abused by teachers who want to make sure that things are getting done, but you want to balance getting things done and being able to access with actually the social time that the student is getting and the ability to be in the classroom and work with their peers that they're getting as well. Chatting through third-party applications or texting and calling the student while they are in class so that you can provide feedback and guidance live were some of our ideas, but I wanted to open the discussion to ideas that you guys had around this. And if you're coming, if this is something that you're coming across as a need, please speak up. Everyone's a pro, huh?
Okay, I guess we'll move on, right?
Okay.
So here are some documents. As I started one and then another, it led to another, led to another. And I think, you know, the more documentation is better. So we're working, Winnie's going to be working on getting these onto our COVID-19 Zoom section on our CSB website as well. So literally, you know, the iOS commands. And there's not a whole lot for iOS, but if you have a keyboard hooked up to your iPad, there's things that you can do to make it much easier. You saw the using Siri to start meetings, the IPVO, even down to, you know, how do I join a meeting? So these are all available. Are you able to put those into the chat, Adrian?
Killing me. Maybe not. Maybe
I
not
can't
all
even
of
see.
those. I've been trying to highlight the big ones you've been
Yeah.
covering, but
I think the Windows probably is the most
we'll
important.
have all of these links that are presented in the presentation under the YouTube description, and we'll even include some of these ones that were highlighted in the chat.
And they'll also be on our CSB website.
Mhm.
We also have some additional resources, some archived Tuesday teas. We have a discussion about Braille and distance learning that was archived from May, about just resources that were out at that time, but we do have some upcoming. I also linked here considerations for CBI considerations for distance learning. On this page, I found a lot of really great content. If you have any students with CBI, I highly encourage you to take a look at this. Christine Roman created a table of best practices and guidelines for supporting students with CBI and distance learning, and it's been really helpful for me. So I wanted to pass that along to you. Next slide. We have some upcoming Tuesday teas. They are every Wednesday. Next week is Zoom with voiceover, engaging families and paraprofessionals in remote learning. And that one is our upcoming Braille instruction, is one of our upcoming Braille instruction Tuesday teas about our Beginning Braille series, which Stephanie Herlick put together. It's a 6-series set of videos and lessons for paraprofessionals and parents on Braille to help support their students learning Braille at home. Then we have Zoom with JAWS for TVIs, and then how-to guides on remote Braille teaching and the learning environment. So that is really directed more towards TVIs and how to facilitate Braille instruction in the distance learning environment. And then next, we're gonna ask you guys to present something. So if there's something that's been working for you or like an idea that you want to share, please reach out to us. You can go to the next slide. There you can fill out a presenter planning form or contact Adrian or Amanda with an idea. And really, there's so much expertise in our field. There's so much that we can share. And so we really just want to provide a platform for you to do that. And our typical outline, which didn't really happen today, was that for 20 minutes you talk. And then for the next 40 minutes, it's an open table discussion. Of course, you would have the AT team there with you to help facilitate the discussion. But 20 minutes presenting something that's working for you that you think would be beneficial to the field, hopefully is tangible. I think it's tangible for anybody. So I'm interested in everybody's ideas. Please reach out.
Well, it doesn't have to be about technology. You guys are welcome to come up with a non-tech discussion point too, and we will. I think you'll see the next couple of weeks of Tuesday Teas from us will be tech related, but hopefully you'll see a wider audience from our own presentations from school too. If any of you are dying for one of the links that you missed or got passed over today, please ask for it now in the chat or jump on and ask for it in person right now, and we can make sure you get that before the recording goes up too. Talkative group, Vanessa.
I know.
Do you want to answer the Q&A questions?
Did we answer them? We think we did. Do you think we missed one?
We have the ones that we've been collecting.
Oh,
just
yeah.
Okay, so we can, I guess I can just copy them and put them in the chat. If that works.
I just put the iOS, the one that I just put up there is for the iOS.
Cool.
It is 4:30, but I guess if people want to stay.
Probably,
Yeah, if you want to stay for that discussion.
and
then
I'll
you
do the
can.
Windows as well.
Yeah, you know, the Chromebook doesn't have explicit ones from Zoom keyboard commands, but I'm curious, when you're in Zoom, if you go to settings and go to keyboard shortcuts, they must be some. I couldn't log onto my kids' Chromebooks, and they're all out at the moment.
I'll work on that. It's going on my list. I have the format all done, so it's just a matter of finding them and putting them in the format.
Yeah.
I'll get right on that.
Yeah, see, Rebecca's saying Alt-A. I have a feeling Chromebooks are going to be darn similar and coming from the Zoom keyboard shortcuts themselves. So, Amanda, did we have questions from the Q&A from people submitting?
She just pasted it. I think some of these we addressed in discussion or via the chat, except for the first one. I don't think that we addressed. Others, I think, were addressed in the chat or in discussion.
There's an interesting one about Zoom slowing down when the Focus 40 is connected. That shouldn't be happening. I guess I would try restarting.
I gave Diane your and Eureka's email addresses and asked her to reach out specifically because it could be a RAM issue with a computer. It could be a weird thing with a phone. She's got to find out more about the device the student is using. When a teacher is sharing her screen, can students enlarge it on their Chromebook by Control+? We kind of addressed that in the chat, but for those of you who didn't see it, there's two different ways to magnify in Chrome, whether it's Chromebook or, well, if it's a Chromebook. You can magnify on the screen itself with Control+ and Control-, but you can also use the magnification setting through accessibility. And the keystroke for that, I'm going to forget, it has something to do with screen brightness. I put it in earlier. Control and Alt together plus brightness up will magnify in, and Control Alt brightness down will magnify out. But you have to have magnifier turned on. I think it's called magnification turned on in accessibility settings.
Don't forget the docked magnifier.
You can also have a docked magnifier. And is that a separate keystroke or is that a setting to have?
It's a separate one.
A separate one. So you have to, okay. Multiple magnifiers in a Chromebook. Blue light was a thing we talked about in the links. TVI. I think we're doing pretty good, other than the Google Meet answer. Asking about, can I split the screen in Google Meet? And we would have to have had more info, I think, for that question, right? I'm not sure what they mean by split screen.
You can put two windows side by side, make them fit, one to the left, one to the right. I do that quite a bit in meetings, so I can look at the document while people are talking or whatever.
I've noticed that larger monitors, a secondary external monitor, is helping a lot of kids that we didn't think it as important prior to distance learning. That they're able to get more screen space, and a lot of our kids do like to have all their friends on the screen at once, right? And they're teeny tiny on a laptop. Oh, Scott, you got a direct question in chat.
Oh no, what did I do? A CCTV to iPad. Do you mean the other way around, transmitting the iPad to a CCTV? With an adapter, like the old 30 pin or the lightning, you can plug the lightning or 30 pin into your device, and then there's a VGA or HDMI on the other end, and then anything that's got a connector will work.
as you're saying, you could plug in anything with an output, like an iPad or a computer could plug into a video in on any
Right.
screen.
Or HDMI or whatever,
But
right.
yeah, but Eileen, be careful, because just because you can get the image to show up on your older video magnifier, your magnification wheel won't work. You won't be
Right.
able to magnify the screen because you're using a different input.
You'd be limited to magnifying on the device, and then it would, you're basically using it as an external monitor.
Yeah.
But if you only have one monitor there, I mean, that it's a good use.
Okay.
Do you recommend, if we have a student who is using like an external monitor or a TV as like a larger screen for their laptop, do you recommend HDMI to the TV or screencasting?
Probably depends on their Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we've done both. We use the Android, I forget what they're called, and then the Apple TV. You can do it that way. A lot of the smart TVs now, you can cast out your device right. It's built into the smart TVs now. So yeah, there's a lot of tricky ways. If you have specific questions, we can do some research, help you research and figure out, what do you actually need to make that work.
And specifically, Rebecca, it might have to do with your individual kid's ability. If you're dealing with a kid who can't troubleshoot and do technical on their own device, the cable will plug in and display. Obviously, if you're dealing with a family that doesn't have strong enough Wi-Fi to support any form of cast, you don't have that option. If you have the technical ability, say it again.
I just meant, sorry, I meant in picture quality. Which
In
one was
picture
better?
quality, your best bet is always gonna be hardwired in. You're gonna
Okay.
have less variables that way.
And HDMI would obviously be much higher quality than VGA. So there's different levels of quality. And sometimes just trying it and seeing, could well be the only way to find out, really, especially if you have older equipment.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I think not only is it great to have these things be a limited time, so you can anticipate it as those of you attending, but we got to cut them for our own staff too, so that they're not here all night. So thank you. And your link, Amanda, correct? Their link will work for next week, right?
Yes, it's the same for every session.
Yay. So
I actually wanted to correct myself about the remote control. I confused it with remote support. So if you're on like a group account like we are at CSB, if you have breakout rooms enabled, which we do because it's great for class, you can't use remote support for some reason. So it's like a give or take, just something that might be good to know.
I'll have to play around with that and see what's up.
But that's it.
Cool.
thank you, everybody.
Everybody have a great Tuesday.